walk her down the valley. Pack a piece of heaven for the bottoms of her feet. Teach her how to jump and how to stretch when she reach, like the angels do, and you gon' make it through now. Tell about the healer. Greater is the one within, and call him as the leader. Teach her how to hold a pretty hand up to the sky, and never wait upon the giver. He'll deliver like a dealer. To take her higher.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing this? I think it's Monday. Happy Martin Luther King Day. My name is Dr. Simone Hall, and I serve as the Imperial Commandress's executive assistant. It is my honor and my pleasure to introduce our 50th Imperial Commandress, Dr. Karen Wright-Chisolm from Arabian Court 128, the Oasis of Charleston, Desert of South Carolina. Ma'am, welcome.
Hi, vacationing, Miss Simone. Daughter Simone, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You know, I am honored, and it is my honor and pleasure to serve you. So I never take a vacation. I'm at your disposal 24/7. So I'm excited about tonight. I don't know, because I am vacationing, what's on the agenda, but I do have the first question. So, Imperial Commandress, today marks the 145th day since your installation as the 50th Imperial Commandress. You've made some significant and some critical improvements to the manner in which this organization, the Imperial Court, operates. And I'm so excited about what the future holds and curious about the next 145 days, especially Proclamation number 1. So, first question, what should we expect to see in your first official proclamation?
Thank you for that question, Simone. What you should expect to see in my first official proclamation is just pretty much a snippet of some of the changes that we have made so far to enhance the Imperial Court, to actually just give it a different look, and to make sure that we are capturing all of those critical departments that we are going to make changes to. You will be able to see and know who the new deputy for the deserts are, who the new deputies for the oases are. We do have some returning, and some we have brand new. Most of you know that I have also implemented tenures. So in the proclamation number 1, you will see the appointment of the Imperial deputies for the desert with their tenures, that they can serve up to 8 years, and the Imperial deputies for the oasis with their tenures to serve up to 6 years. You may see some deputies for the desert and some deputies for the oasis that have not reached that tenure that may be returning. But other than that, you will have to wait for the printed proclamation that will be coming out in a few days to see exactly who those new Imperial deputies for the deserts are and the Imperial deputies for the oasis are. They already know who they are, and they were sworn to secrecy, y'all. But we know some of them let the cat out the bag early, but we're going to deal with that later. But for now, we will be listing those in proclamation number 1. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And I know across the domain, daughters are anxious, as well as some of the nobility, to find out what deputies they will be working for in their oases and in their deserts. So are there any other important tidbits that will be coming out in the proclamation? I know the deputies will be announced, but any other changes, edicts we should expect to see in your first proclamation?
Okay. Also, along with the the deputies for the desert and the deputies for the oasis, we will be implementing tenures for department directresses. Y'all remember, I did ask for daughters to submit resumes. And as to date, we have received over 845 resumes. Now, those of you that did not think that I was serious about submitting your resumes, guess what, y'all? We got to move on. And we're going to move forward with those that we have received in hopes that we will be able to place daughters based on their expertise and their skills in the departments that are critical, those departments that need some improvement, those departments that we need to implement in this Imperial Court, like corporate affairs, media, branding, marketing, all those departments that we are trying to place daughters that have that expertise in their civilian lives and that experience that they can bring to this Imperial Court. And guess what? You don't have to be a past commandress to have the expertise to serve on one of those particular committees in the Imperial Court. We will be also listing those daughters that have been appointed to joint committees with the Imperial Council as well in the proclamation. Now, I know the Imperial Potentate has already put out his roster and his list, but we will also note those daughters that have been appointed to the Imperial Council and Imperial Court joint committees. Know that there have been several daughters that have been appointed as leads to some of these joint departments. And I want to say, coming out in the proclamation will be congratulations going to them for already working hard in securing those departments and moving this Imperial Council and this Imperial Court to another level. So hats off to them. Thank you for all that you do, all that you will continue to do. And we look forward to other daughters coming on board, being a part of this team and taking this Imperial Court to another level.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I do know that that's one of those significant changes, having daughters in charge of serving as directors of joint departments. We're making history under your leadership, and I thank you for that. So my next question here recently, actually last week, there was some bad weather, inclement weather that came through the region, and you and the Imperial Potentate put out an inclement weather message, mainly for the safety of our daughters. Could you elaborate on that, the intent of that message, just a little bit, ma'am?
Okay, the intent of that message came about a time when there were tornadoes and hurricanes going through particular areas. In order to be assured that not only daughters, but even nobles that were having meetings during that particular week, we put out an edict that if you were experiencing inclement weather due to, well, maybe we didn't say specifically due to the hurricane, but we said during that time that you were advised to either reschedule your meeting to another time within the month, or if it was not necessary to reschedule it before the month was over, you could have a Zoom call. Guess what, y'all? We got daughters taking that edict that came in reference to hurricanes and just using it for their benefit. I'm getting people from states and deserts that always have inclement weather like snow, and they don't shut down just for snow and things like that. So I'm getting daughters that's feeling like taking that edict that went out that week for those tornadoes and doing that time to and taking advantage of it. I thought someone told me that was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to happen that fast. We wanted to trust daughters to use their own, best judgment in dealing with that. But No, that is not for inclement weather that you think is too cold to go to a meeting or too cold to have a meeting, when in some states 20 degrees is not inclement weather for courts to go to their meetings. So please don't change what was said, and don't put your own time into that. If there is a situation where you have inclement weather or anything going on in your deserts, you must first contact the office of the Imperial Commandress to ensure that it qualifies for something that you can cancel your meeting for or change your meeting for, dealing with inclement weather, unseen things like a tornado or earthquake or something. Those are the kind of things that we were talking about. But please, if you think that there is a need to change your meeting for something like that, you must first contact the Imperial Commander's office to get approval. That letter and an edict that went out was just for that time frame last week or week before last that we set in place.
Thank you, ma'am, for that clarification. So before I open it up to questions from across the domain, I do have one other question.
Okay.
During your last address, ma'am, there was a question that specifically talked about funeral rights for daughters who may be non-financial. Are there any processes or procedures that you're thinking about putting in place to address that?
I'm glad you asked that question. Yes, in the last couple of weeks, we have been getting a lot of requests from courts in reference to daughters that are aged or senior that may have been dropped from roll because of non-payment of dues. I am in the process of looking into that and coming up with something where we could still honor these daughters that were made daughters many years ago, and for whatever reason, the courts may have dropped them from roll, because guess what, y'all? We have not been our sister's keeper. We have had daughters that came into this organization in 1975, 1960, that may still be living, and they have been dropped from roll because they could not pay their dues. I am under the belief that if it was not for these daughters that started these courts and chartered these courts and paid dues for all those many years that they were members of this organization, to drop them from roll is a crying shame. So I have decided that I will honor requests from any court submitting for a daughter to receive, what do you call it? Rights. Last rights in case of death, and to also in some instances reinstate these daughters to the roll. We had a request that came from a court in Florida on last week, and I granted that daughter received. The daughter is currently in hospice. They do not, and we don't know, work of God. We don't know when this daughter will expire or if she will even expire. But I have given the authority for that court to give last rites to that daughter in the event of her death. And in addition to that, I also bestowed upon that daughter honors of honorary pass Imperial Commandress, and I asked the daughters to go to her hospice bed and present that to her in hopes that that could be just bring a smile on her face. Bring a smile on her face. And along with that, I have also requested that that daughter be reinstated to the roles of that court for legacy and historical information for that court. And I know there are lots of daughters out there that fall in that same situation. So I am asking, if you have a daughter in your court that is above age 90, 95, 100, I know we have a daughter coming up celebrating her 102nd birthday in a couple of weeks. Please get that information to me. If you have daughters that you know that came into this organization that were chartered members or even just members for a long time and were dropped from roles, I want you to send those names to me. And we're going to see what we can do about reinstating those daughters to our roles, exempt from dues and anything else that they need to pay. We will make that happen. So we have to, reclaim our past. We got to reclaim our past. We got to focus on the present, and we got to rebuild the future. So guess what? I'm trying. I say, once you are made a daughter, you are always a daughter. So dues and financial situations should not alleviate daughters from being listed on the rolls of this organization. So thank you. We're going to come up with something, a system where we can work it out so that everyone will have an opportunity to reclaim those daughters that have been dropped from roll.
That is fantastic news, Imperial Commandress, and you truly are your sister's keeper. So just along that same vein, honorary past Imperial Commandress exaltations, are there any plans? There has been some, maybe abuse is a poor word, but maybe a misuse of that exaltation. Are there any plans to recognize not just daughters that go above and beyond, but as you stated, those seasoned daughters that we may not have honored them properly? Do you have any plans in the future to honor them?
I do. I know that, we have had some, let me put it mildly, abuse of naming honorary past Imperial Commandresses to this organization. When that was set up, it was for those daughters that went above and beyond. There were certain requirements that they had to meet. They had to wait earlier, 10 years before they could receive it. We just recently changed it to 5 years. But guess what, y'all? We had some daughters that have been in this organization for 30, 40, 50 years. And because they were not able to go consecutively to Imperial session, they were not ever recommended by their courts, and they never received honorary past Imperial Commandress degrees or even honorary past Commandress degrees. And since we have kind of abused that, where we started giving it freely to people, not even daughters coming in, just daughters coming into the organization for the first time, not even knowing what the organization is about, giving it to daughters just out of the blue, not saying that, they did not deserve it, but those, because we overlooked so many daughters that were well deserving of that honor, I am thinking to implement a time span where I may be able to honor daughters age 90 and above that have possibly served as illustrious commandress or served the Imperial Court for more than 10 5 to 10 years and that have not been given an honorary pass Imperial Commandress, I am looking at a process where we could bestow that honor upon those daughters 90 and above without fee, 85 to 90 to 89 with fee if they are wanting to request an honorary pass Imperial Commandress degree. Still some little things we have to work out in it, but that's my plan to make sure that those daughters are taken care of. That time span will last for only a certain amount of months. And once that's over, we're going to go back, tweak the processes that we have in place, enhance the processes, and start afresh. Okay. We just want to take care of those daughters that have been overlooked, that have been members of this organization for so many years and have not had the opportunity. Because right now, the real gist of what it is, it really deflated the merit of that. So because it was done, we want to try to correct it for those daughters that could have gotten it, that did not get it, to bestow that honor upon them. So a lot going on, y'all. I'm trying to work it through my head and work it through my heart, and making sure that we take care of those daughters in this organization. And just like I say, we got to reclaim the past, reclaim our legacy. We got to focus on the present, and we got to rebuild the future. And we got to brand, and we got to correct, and we got to do things in decency and in order. So hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am, it does. And it actually initiated another question that I just received. What about life membership? Is that something that the Imperial Court is considering? I don't know that it ever ceased, but reinvigorating.
Okay, yeah, we are. I'm wanting to look at reinvigorating the life membership. Again, looking at our senior and seasoned members. And I'm also looking at and trying to brand the name of the Imperial Court daughters. All of y'all know, and I'm just stealing something from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. I'm looking at naming some honorary members of the Imperial Court daughters. We know that there were a lot of daughters made that never came to a meeting, never got really on our roll. We named some daughters, we gave them, well, we didn't, yeah. Some daughters were named, they were given honorary pass Imperial Commandress degrees, and we never see them. So with the honorary members of the Imperial Court, those members would be recognized as honorary members of the Imperial Court, and they may only come to Imperial sessions and be recognized at that time, because they're not coming into our meetings and they're not, really taking part in the organization per se, but we want to recognize them and name them. In addition to that, we're trying to brand our name and connect in partnership with various organizations. I attended the National Council of Negro Women convention a couple of months ago, and I am in the process of signing up the Imperial Court daughters as a partner to the National Council of Negro Women. So I know we have many members out there that say that they are members. I'm a life member, and I know we have a lot of daughters out there that are life members. I'm going to ask you to submit your names to me and those desiring to become life members, we're going to construct and reconstruct our list, submit it to the National Council of Negro Women, and let them know that we are in support and partnering with the National Council of Negro Women with the initiatives that they are trying to reach that involves all of us as women. So that is just one of the organizations that I have attempted to connect with, and we're on a roll. We should hear something by March as to the completion of the application for processing for us to be what do they call it? Affiliate.
Yes, ma'am.
And to have an affiliation with the National Council of Negro Women. So it's in the works.
Good stuff. This is good stuff, ma'am. I'm going to shift focus because I just got another question. Knowing that all members cannot attend Imperial session for whatever reason, will that criteria be removed?
If you're talking in reference to the Honorary Past Imperial Commandress criteria for those members that are seasoned in age, that will not be a criteria right now. We are still going to look at the prerequisites and the criteria, and we're going to try to tweak that process once we've given it to these seasoned daughters. We're going to have to critique that. So if you have any suggestions and recommendations that you want to see happen, just send a little note and to my office, and we'll consider any recommendations from the daughters and what you think is fair and what you think is right that will help us to be able to award those honors and bestow those honors upon more daughters that are not, for whatever reason, able to come to Imperial session. We'll take all that under consideration.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So in the midst of some of the department restructuring, and we know that for the most part, ICE is being restructured, line officer training. There's a misconception that line officer training can be conducted via Zoom. Can you elaborate on that? Is that possible, or should they be in the court, conducted in the court meetings?
I know, because we have so many issues with people not having locations where they can meet more than one night a week in buildings and things of that sort. We had taken away in the virtual meetings for daughters to go in person. We definitely have to get back to in person. As far as the line officers training, I try to encourage you to do as much of that in person. Maybe if you do it before your meeting or after your meeting, as long as you guys not running till 4 and 5 hours in a meeting, try to conduct some of that in person. But if it is not possible to do that, do what you have to do on Zoom, but try to use in person as the first means, because it's kind of hard to conduct line officers training on Zoom. People really need to be in place or in person to see the movement, because how do you really conduct line officers training? Say, for instance, you're trying to teach daughters how to set up the court. How productive is that? Or how conducive is that on Zoom? I don't know. I'm fixing my face. How can yeah, but how, that's really, it's not fair. I mean, we talk about, I know we've gotten away from meeting in person, and guess what, y'all? COVID is here to stay. So it has not stopped us from doing anything else, going anywhere else we want to go, but to meetings. So it's always an excuse or a reason why we think we can't do meetings in person, that we need to do it on Zoom. But the first ball weekend, or the first desert conference, or the first black party, or what do they call those things that they're doing now? The smoke and whatever.
Sip and smoke.
Yeah, whatever. They're doing those in person. So guess what? What is important to you? What is critical for the operations of this Imperial Court, and even for your constituent courts? You got to take the time, make the time, and do what you have to do to accommodate the daughters. That because y'all, we need a lot of training. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do, and trying to do that on Zoom is not going to work. So,
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, I have questions coming in the chat. I got questions coming in on my phone because I made the mistake of putting my phone number out there. So I'll ask them as long as you want to stay on. Are we going to create? Do you intend to create a civics department? You talked about the NCNW affiliation, and I know that you're doing work with the NAACP.
yeah.
Is that something that's on the horizon?
That is on the horizon, and we are going to be looking at the resumes that we received, and those daughters that have some experience and expertise in those areas will be put on that committee. We've also come up with a couple of other new committees. We came out with a disaster preparedness team. We're coming out with a emergency response team. What was the other one that we talked about the other day, Simone and Daughter Smith? Risk management. And we are setting up those committees for those daughters and all this is to enhance and to help us, especially when we're at session, even when you're in your local constituent court meetings. You should have an emergency preparedness plan, an escape route. You got to know what's going to happen if things happen within your court, in your courtrooms. So we will be putting those plans into motion and getting that information out to the daughters.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And other organizations, yeah, like you said, we're looking at the NCNW. We're trying to rebrand with the NAACP. We're trying to get with mostly female organizations that we can connect with. A lot of them have the same mission that we are working on, and we have a lot of the same people in these other organizations that want to come together. And yeah, so that's what we're looking at. And I had a thought and it just kind of left my mind just now. So I was saying.
Well, we'll hang out here, ma'am. We need to hear your thoughts.
I don't remember what I was going to say, but yeah, I know it has something to do with, I don't remember. So go ahead to the next question.
Yes, ma'am. So what is happening with Daughters of Distinction?
I think on one of my previous podcasts, I annotated that Daughters of Distinction in my tenure is no longer. There were Daughters of Distinction made and named in the 49th Imperial Commandress's annual address. I honored those. I think it was like 20 names. But the reason I felt like Daughters of Distinction would not exist during my tenure, it started appearing to be a conflict. The Daughters of Distinction, what the concept was originally, I'm not really sure, but we started separating. It was like we had an elite group of daughters within the group. And as far as I'm concerned, every daughter that's a member of this Imperial Court daughters is a daughter of distinction. They were requested to do fundraisers and things of that sort. And my take on that was, if you're going to do fundraising as a daughter of distinction, why not put that energy in working with your court and doing community involvement, doing fundraising, doing whatever you're doing. Put that effort in your court. And that's why I said every daughter should be a daughter of distinction. So guess what? We're not going to have a group within a group. We're going to come together, work together, build together, and move forward. So, but for such a time as this, as I am the 50th Imperial Commandress, Daughters of Distinction is null and void.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So there are no more questions for IMRs, ma'am. But as I stated, my phone is over here blowing up. The only reason why you can't hear it is because I got these earpods in. So I'm gonna, again, you tell me last question and we'll make last questions, but I got the same question came a couple of times and you've addressed this before. Will you have open dispensations during your administration?
Open dispensations like what? Like
open windows.
Open window.
Yes, ma'am.
No. The open window you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. That's
no,
I worded it wrong.
That is not my intention. I don't have any intention of having an open window. Y'all, we got work to do. We have to clean our house before we invite guests into our house. We got to clean up some things. We got to reclaim the past, focus on the present, rebuild the future. We have to go back to the old landmark. We have to understand that bloodline makes a difference. If you think about what family means, and if you think about that bloodline, and if you focus on family ties and that bond, you would know that there's a difference. I'm not saying that we don't get some good daughters out of the open window, but right now we need to clean house. We need to actually stick with the bloodline right now, try to build this Imperial Court back to the level where it needs to be, where we can have more love, we can bind closer together, we can have some unity, we can have some respect for each other, and just try to rebuild this court. So right now, open window is not an option for me right now. I wanna read a quote in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. life and legacy. I wanted to remind each of you with this quote from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And as I paraphrase, it says, "The ultimate measure of a woman is not where she stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where she stands at times of challenge and controversy." These last 5 months have definitely been challenging. But because of my unwavering faith in God, I choose to always trust God with every situation, not only in my personal life, but most importantly, dealing with the good, the bad, the positive, the negative, and the prospects of a future that will change the look of this organization and move us to higher heights for finer women and more sisterly love. So right now, open window, I don't think we're going to be able to accomplish that right now until we could fix some things.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So you just quoted the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and we know we are honoring him today. And I know you had the honor today to hang out with the Vice President of the United States. So can you tell us a little bit about that and the experience? And I will live vicariously through you because I have never met her face to face.
It was truly a humbling experience today. This is really, I've met her before, and this was really the second time that I met her. It was a little hectic, today, but guess what? She was there, she came and she spoke. The crowd was, just really excited to see her. I was truly humbled by the experience of the fact that I stood on that stage today with Vice President Kamala Harris as a dreamer, living the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, as a dreamer. And I was humbled and honored by the fact that I stood on the same stage today as the first Imperial from the city of Charleston, the first Imperial Commandress to serve from the state of South Carolina. We know that daughter Ada Irene Dawson was elected, but she never served. So I was the first to serve from the state of South Carolina. And there stood on that stage today, the first Black woman to serve in one of the highest office as Vice President for this United States of America. It was truly an humbling and honored experience for me today. And I just thank God for that opportunity to be able to be in the presence and stand on that same stage where Kamala Harris, as the first female, the first female Vice President of the United States of America. And y'all, I got to see her.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, there are a few questions in the chat as well as that have been sent to me that are specific to the Imperial Recorderess, Deputy Imperial Commandress, and I will address those separately. I don't see any other questions for you specifically, so I will ask if you have any closing. I don't know if you can top the Vice President thing, but I don't know if you have closing comments that you'd like to share.
Well, I just wanted to let everyone know that I have made every effort to change the look of this Imperial Court by attempting to clean up some issues in order to move forward to make a change. I have implemented the submissions of resumes for any and all daughters who are willing to join the team and changing the makeup of this Imperial Court. To date, and just like I said earlier, to date, we have received in excess over 845 resumes that will be reviewed and approved for appointments to various committees. along with the appointments and the tenure and everything else. I am so excited to serve you as the 50th Imperial Commandress of this Imperial Court. And in keeping with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. life and legacy, I thank God and I thank Dr. Martin Luther King for his inspiration, that I am realizing my dream to serve, and my dream as the 50th Imperial Commandress of this Imperial Court. And I just ask that you pray much my strength in the Lord, that as we work together, hand in hand, being our sister's keeper, loving each other, uniting as one, reclaiming our past, focusing on our present, and rebuilding our future, that you will remember that I put God first in everything that I do, and I allow the Spirit to lead and guide me. And I am happy to report that the Spirit has told me that we are on the road to pursue excellence through this Imperial Court. And I invite each of you to join with me in moving forward and making sure that the Imperial Court daughters in my tenure, you will see the best that you have seen, in hopes to take it on for years to come. So thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully I've answered your questions. I just love y'all. And I just thank each of you for your prayers. I feel them, y'all, sometimes. And thank you, Simone, for taking time out of your vacation. I'm a little jealous because you're over there in Panama, 93 degrees.
It's 93 degrees. I put a sweater on because I was going to be on camera.
Don't even tell me. I ain't want to hear it. But thank you. And I say thank you to the media relations. You know, they just answer the call when I tell them last minute and I'm running and I'm like, y'all, I gotta get it. I gotta get it. And I know some of you thought I was gonna read some names tonight, but guess what? Nah, I can't. You'll see it in writing. Those who know who they are, I told y'all to keep it under wraps, but if you let it out, don't be surprised.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you.
Walk her down the valley, pack a piece of heaven for the bottoms of her feet. Teach her how to jump and how to stretch when she reach, like the angels do, and you gon' make it through now. Tell about the healer, greater is the one within, and call him as the leader. Teach her how to hold a pretty hand up to the sky, and never wait upon the giver, he'll deliver like a dealer.